My camera walks a fucking fine line. I feel like I should probably start my next video with an apology to the Snitch. I didn't really mean to offend anybody. It's fine, whatever you practice. I don't care. But where you practice? I mean, they just went in and they just took over that lady's backyard table. And I'm sorry, like, you have to be respectful of your neighbors, even if they do let you eat for free out of their garden. Hey y'all, welcome back. If you don't know me, I'm TK, and this channel is all about doing some makeup, doing a little bit of food, and having a really good time. So if that sounds like fun to you, go ahead, do all those YouTube-y things. Make sure that you have your notifications on, and go ahead, leave a like on this video if you don't mind. Thank you so much. How is everyone doing? I hope you are all feeling wonderful on this beautiful day. Today is, once again, Makeup and Music Mondays. So today we're going to talk about movie stars that had hit singles. We already did one where the single did better than the movie. These are actually movie stars who, not like they were singers that then had a movie career. They were movie stars, but they did like a song or two on the side, and it became a hit single. So if that sounds like fun to you, then hang around. We'll be right back.
Yeah. Oh, they don't know me like they think they know me.
Because you're a romancing. Put diamonds on your finger. Yeah, I guess they're okay. Let's talk about the makeup before we talk about the music. I got this palette a little bit ago. It showed up on my Instagram. I'm kind of a sucker on there for different, like different maybe indie brands that pop up, but I'm learning a lot about doing my research first before buying some of these palettes. But this one seems pretty cool. It's from a company called Lorella, and it's their Totally Tubular palette. You can see all kinds of reviews on YouTube if you want for this. One of the reasons I don't review stuff is because I don't get it in PR, and I'm like, what's the point? 50 people with more followers than me are gonna get it. So I don't even know what the reviews were. I bought this mostly because I am an 80s chick. This was just speaking to my 80s soul. Now, Totally Tubular, that it's funny because that's a specific term from the 80s that was really among surfers. So they would refer to things that were really cool as totally tubular, and maybe it gained some traction from the movie Point Break or something. I'm not really sure. Some of the surfer language kind of came into the slang for the 80s. We didn't use it. I was too far inland for that mess. But let me show you this color story because it's just so cute. Look at that. And none of those are glitters, by the way. They're all those like metallic shimmers. Aren't they pretty? And they have like really cool names. Bueller, Radical. Radical was something we did use a lot where I was. Maverick. We all know where that's from. Molly Ringwald, okay. Rhapsody, Wild Boys, and Reflex. That was cool. I thought it was great that they had two shades that were an homage to Duran Duran. Goonie, Righteous. We say Righteous a lot. 16. Wake Me Up. I'll tell you, I wish somebody would wake me up from a reality where George Michael is no longer with us, because when he went, we really lost a good one. So that is Totally Tubular. I want to do like a blue and pink look that we would have done in the 80s. But the problem with this palette is it doesn't have any dark, like there's that dark blue on the bottom and then there's Wake Me Up. But those colors are shimmers, and I really need kind of a dark matte on that outside corner, so we're going to start there. So in order to get that, we're going to dip into Lagoon from Eternal Eclipse. That's the makeup that we're going to use today. The reason that I decided to go with kind of an 80s look is because these songs are all from in and around the 80s. The first song we're going to talk about, this guy was another pretty good actor, actually a really great actor that I enjoyed. I enjoyed a lot of his movies, who is now gone from us, and that is Patrick Swayze. And he had a hit back in 1986 with a song called She's Like the Wind. Let's go ahead and we'll take a listen to that now.
She's like the wind through my tree. She rides the night next to me. Your breath in my face, your body close to me. Can't
was She's Like the Wind by Patrick Swayze. Who knew, first of all, that he had pipes like that? I would have never guessed it from movies like that. I remember him from like Roadhouse. You know, I didn't see that coming. I have actually never seen the movie Dirty Dancing, but that's where this song came from. He wrote the song with a friend, actually co-wrote the song with a Nashville composer, Stacey Weidelitz, and he wrote it in 1984. It was originally intended for the soundtrack of a movie that he was filming with Jamie Lee Curtis called Grandview USA. The production company didn't choose that song to be part of the movie. He gave it to the producers of Dirty Dancing. Then they chose it for the movie, where Swayze's character Johnny and Baby, that was played by Jennifer Grey, where they part ways. So that's when the song was used. Obviously, the movie Dirty Dancing was huge, and the song became huge. It reached number 3 in the US on the Billboard Hot 100. You know, there were so many hit songs that came out of that movie, like Had the Time of My Life. That soundtrack spawned so many hits. Hungry Eyes by Eric Carmen. I don't know if you know Eric Carmen. He's the guy that had the hit All By Myself. Obviously the one with Jennifer Warren and Bill Medley, who is from the Righteous Brothers, if you didn't know. I've Had the Time of My Life. And everybody remembers that song. She's Like the Wind, also number 3. And I feel like if I'm Patrick Swayze and I basically do movies, but I co-wrote and recorded a song that came off an album that spawned those mega hits. Like, pretty proud of myself. So the other person that you hear in this song is Wendy Frazier. She was the girlfriend of Stacey Weidelitz, the person that he co-wrote the song with. And she provided some, vocals to do like a counterpart for Swayze's vocals and some backup vocals throughout just for the demo. And then when they actually went in the studio to do the final recording, they were like, no, she has to come in and she has to do this. So that is She's Like the Wind by Patrick Swayze from the movie Dirty Dancing. If Patrick Swayze felt comfortable as an actor in the 80s trying his hand at having a hit song, then he probably has this next guy to thank for it. Eddie Murphy, who we all know from super, super hit movies like Beverly Hills Cop, obviously where he got to start. You know him from Saturday Night Live. You know him from the Disney things he's done, Daddy Daycare, Haunted Mansion, and obviously his stand-up comedy. He always wanted to have a singing career. He even talks about it a little bit in his first stand-up video, Delirious. He mentions wanting to be a singer for some various reasons.
The singers get all the
That remark was kind of a little bit of truth too, because he always did kind of want to have a singing career. For him, it was hard to get taken seriously because in the 80s there was very much this idea among critics of like, stay in your lane. Do your movie thing or your TV thing or your stand-up thing or your singing thing. If you tried to cross over between those, even going from like TV to movie, critics would shit on you really hard. Eddie Murphy in the mid 80s came out with Party All the Time. Let's listen to it and then we'll talk about how that song changed all that mess.
Hey guys, we're gonna party all the time. Really be. Okay, put your phones on now.
Girl, I can't understand it. Why you wanna hurt me? After all of the things I've done for you,
Okay, that is Party All the Time by Eddie Murphy. And that song was released in 1985. Basically, Rick James did everything on that album. He wrote the song. He wanted Murphy to record it. He got the studio together, got the musicians together, orchestrated all these things. Basically, you know, this was a Rick James vehicle for Eddie Murphy to ride. And ride he did. I think this song is brilliantly done. I think it perfectly captures the 80s. Critics were like, oh, it's just so overly synthesized. Okay, first of all, super freak. All right, nobody was criticizing that. And second of all, I don't know, Howard Jones, Thomas Dolby, She Blinded Me with Science, and Devo, hello. They were all super popular in the 80s. Nobody was shitting on them for being overly synthesized. That was their thing. That was their gig. And of course, it's that whole stay in your lane thing. Here comes Eddie Murphy. And they're like, oh no, that's just so overly synthesized. Nobody was even shitting on Rick James. And that was his gig. That was his whole thing. Hearing that, obviously, you know, as I'm learning more about the song and how it came to be, it was kind of pissing me off because I'm like, no, I lived through this. Nobody was shitting on synthesized music. You guys just did that because you couldn't. What else were you going to do? He sang that perfectly. It was a great dance tune. And to be honest, in the face of all that, American audiences weren't having any of the critics' shenanigans. They launched that song to number 2, and the only reason it stayed at number 2 was Lionel Richie had released Say You Say Me from the White Knight soundtrack, and it hit number 1, and it won a Grammy, and it was just huge. But that song stayed right on behind it. Basically, Eddie Murphy proved, you know what? I can do it all, and the audiences will follow. And because he did that, it basically made it safe for other people like Don Johnson, who had a number 5 hit called Heartbeat. Bruce Willis had a hit album, a whole hit album. Mostly it was covers. He was the star of Moonlighting. Eddie Murphy kind of paved the way for others, actors, TV actors, movie actors, to do music, to be taken seriously. In 1981, Rick James submitted Super Freak to MTV to play, and they were like, no, we're not going to play this. We just do rock and roll. To me, that's racist AF, and I don't even get it. They had very few videos by black artists. They said because the black labels weren't funding them. I don't know how true that is. You watch the video of this, the guy that shows up in the control room is Les Garland, and he was one of the founders of MTV. Him appearing in this video was kind of like an olive branch from Rick James to MTV, because by this point in time, they had gotten over the whole, we're just going to do rock and roll. If I'm not mistaken, Super Freak did get played on MTV, even though in the beginning they were like, oh no, that's too, you know, explicit. We just do rock and roll, whatever their excuse was. Eddie Murphy finally started getting taken seriously in his music career when he starred in the 2006 movie Dreamgirls. Here's what I think is sad. In 2011, he told Rolling Stone magazine in an interview, I never stopped recording. I just stopped releasing it. And this is what happens when you allow a few people to speak for the mass. Eddie Murphy kind of paved the way for a lot of that sort of crossover thing that we heard in the 80s of movie stars, TV stars coming out with music and actually finding success with that. So that is Party All the Time by Eddie Murphy. The last one we're going to do for this Monday actually comes from 1978. Try to understand the context in which this grew up. Steve Martin was a really great comedian. He was, first and foremost, a comedian. He happened to come up with this song. It just took off as a comedy song. Let's go ahead and listen to King Tut by Steve Martin.
Thought he'd see people stand in line to see the boy king. How'd you get so funky? Did you do the monkey? Born in Arizona, moved to Babylonia. Dancing by the night. crocodile. He gave his life for tourism.
Okay, that was King Tut by Steve Martin. Steve Martin's comedy career in the 1970s was a cultural phenomenon. It happened at a very interesting time in the United States. We were just pulling out of Vietnam. There was still a lot of tension there. There was a lot of tension and misrepresentation of the soldiers that had served in Vietnam in the media, and they were struggling with coming home, and our society was struggling with them coming home. It was a very difficult time emotionally for a lot of Americans, no matter what you thought of us pulling out of Vietnam. And so Steve Martin was a comedian during this time. Imagine trying to do that. And he just felt like, you know what, I think what people need right now is just a bit of escapism, some absurdity that has nothing to do with political climate. You got to remember too, George Carlin was really famous at this time, and he did a lot of political humor. And Steve Martin was just like, no, none of that. Let's just do basic absurdities of life and in my act. And it was amazing. He just got on stage and was absurd in like a very sarcastic, ironic way. And if you see the movie Roxanne and you look at his character, you're kind of like, yeah, that's pretty much his comedy. You know, it was real but sarcastic and absurd. And the fact that he became so famous and people loved him so much just seems odd in the backdrop of everything that we were going through as a country and as a society at the time. He toured with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, which is kind of a rock country group of the era, and he opened for them. And he wasn't usually too well received because people came to see music, not comedy. And one night he was just like, hey, I have this idea, let's do this. And they were like, cool, we'll sing backup, and this is how we'll do it. And they practiced it for about an hour and took it out on stage and absolutely brought the house down with King Tut. There was a little bit later on in the 2000s, there was some problem people had with this song. So let me explain the context for this song. King Tut's tomb was discovered in 1922, and all of the stuff was taken out of it and it was put in a museum. Whatever you think of that, in 1976 to 1979, those artifacts took a tour around the United States, and it was hugely popular. But there was another group of people who felt like this shouldn't be. Those artifacts should, first of all, never have been removed. I don't have any dog in this fight. I do feel like it's important for people to see these things. At the time, we certainly didn't have the video and camera technology to bring them to you in 4K HD. There's a part of me that's like, yeah, it's good that they went on tour, that people could experience it. And then there's a part of me that's like, probably should have just left well enough alone. During this time, there were people who were like, hey, no, y'all should have left those be and left them where they were. This is where I say we have to understand the context that this was written in. This song takes pot shots at the people who were making money from having taken these artifacts from a tomb and touring them all over the world.
I'd like to talk seriously just for a moment. One of the great art exhibits ever to tour the United States is the Treasures of Tutankhamun, or King Tut. But I think it's a national disgrace the way we have commercialized it with trinkets and toys, t-shirts and posters.
That is the target of the joke. That is the target of the song. Not Egyptians, not Egyptian culture. It is the people who were making money exploiting King Tut's artifacts. And that is it. We live in this whole craze of cancel culture, and we often run into it without perspective. Every joke has a subject and a target. It's important to understand those before you make assumptions about the comedy itself. This song is not excused by the era. It's literally not racist or anti-cultural in nature. Steve Martin was having a go at the people who were doing that, who were exploiting this. So Steve Martin himself was a conceptual comedian. His act was a concept. and it was very visual. And that's important for a stand-up comedian. And he toured, like I said, with a Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. One night they wrote King Tut. It isn't really a song, is it? It's like a rap. Steve Martin's got bars, who knew? He rolled the song out on Saturday Night Live, on which he was a guest. A lot of people think that Steve Martin was like a regular cast member of Saturday Night Live, and he wasn't. He was just on there so much. He debuted the song on Saturday Night Live in 1978. It kind of picked up steam over the summer, and in August it was certified gold. It had hit number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100. Of course, you all know that Steve Martin went on to many, many movies. My favorite of his movies is Roxanne. Some of you may know him from Father of the Bride. You might also know him from The Three Amigos, which was him, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short. He and Martin Short teamed up in 2018 to do a comedy special called An Evening You Will Forget for the Rest of Your Life. And it is on Netflix, so you can watch it. It's really funny. The dance that Steve Martin did in the video of King Tut was a dance unto itself. It was called Egyptian Style. It was used in choreography repeatedly. And then in 1986, the Bangles did Walk Like an Egyptian, where they brought it back. It was definitely a function of choreography. It was not a dance that was designed to make fun of anybody, which was, again, one of the complaints of the video that Steve Martin did. So that was King Tut by the comedian and movie star Steve Martin. I have got me quite the 80s eye look here. I wish I had the 80s hairstyle to go along with it. I don't know that I could actually pull that off tonight. And I'm not willing to cut my own hair. I am going to go ahead, finish that under eye, do some foundation, and then I'll be right back to wrap up. Okay, and we're back. This is our final look. This look isn't very 80s. The colors are 80s, but we could have only dreamed. We could have only dreamed of the vibrancy of some of these shimmers and duochromes and so on. Let's go ahead and we're going to wrap up our Music and Makeup Mondays. These are movie stars that had hit singles. Our first one was She's Like the Wind by Patrick Swayze. He co-wrote the song with a friend, Stacey Weidelitz, in 1984. It was originally supposed to be used for a movie that he was doing with Jamie Lee Curtis. Ultimately, the production company didn't choose the song to be on the soundtrack. It was eventually used on the soundtrack to another movie that he did with Jennifer Grey called Dirty Dancing in 1987. That movie in and of itself spawned several hits. She's Like the Wind was right up there among them. It went up to number 3 on the US charts, and Swayze's co-writer's girlfriend, Wendy Frazier, is the other voice that appears in the song. Our second song was Party All the Time by Eddie Murphy. We all know Eddie Murphy. Party All the Time was written by Rick James and was basically a vehicle for Eddie Murphy to record. Eddie Murphy had always done music, always wanted to be taken seriously in a recording career. In the 80s, there was very much this stay in your lane attitude with critics. So when a TV star or a movie star tried to do music, it was always very highly criticized. This song was no exception. Well, the American public saw right through that and shot the song to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it stayed there for 3 weeks right behind Lionel Richie's Say You, Say Me. And the third song we looked at was Steve Martin's King Tut. Steve Martin's comedy career during the 1970s was an absolute cultural phenomenon. He brought comedy and absurdity to the American people in a time when we were struggling with winding down and pulling soldiers out of the Vietnam War. He toured with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and basically perfected his wild and crazy guy persona by opening for their shows. He worked with them to develop the song King Tut one night for like an hour. They went out, performed it, brought the house down. The song was a poke at the companies who were profiting off of the tour of the artifacts from King Tut's tomb, which in some part of American culture was very ill received. There was an idea that the artifacts should have been left where they were. And Steve Martin's King Tut basically takes pot shots at the people who were profiting from touring these artifacts. He debuted the song on Saturday Night Live in April of 1978. During the summer, it picked up a lot of steam and became pretty popular, topped out at number 17 in August of 1978 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it was certified gold, having sold 500,000 copies in America. I hope you guys had fun hanging out with this week's Music and Makeup Mondays. Something that I wanted to talk about that I found really fascinating about Steve Martin. Something I think that we all struggle with is confidence. I think it's really difficult for all of us to kind of find confidence when we want to have it or need to have it. And one of the really interesting things about Steve Martin's performances in the 70s was that he always seemed so confident, even though he was not really using this any tried and true method of comedy. I want to play a short segment from Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. It's a Netflix series starring Jerry Seinfeld, and it's basically Jerry going around with different comedians getting coffee and talking about their careers and how they develop their comedy. I want to just play this very short excerpt from the episode with Steve Martin where Jerry and Steve talk about confidence.
I think the thing that's most amazing about you is the bits that you did are sitting on this mountain of confidence.
Because I am a wild and crazy.
There's nothing harder than performing it with that level of confidence.
Well, when I first started, I decided to fake confidence because I thought it was important that they sensed I believed. If I was like a bit nervous about something, they could smell it, and then they would become judges. But if I was confident, it's like, I don't care what you think. That worked.
But
I don't care what you think.
Even to fake it, it's no different from having real confidence.
That, in a nutshell, affected me when I first heard it. It really changed a lot of things for me because this was something that I kind of always learned to do or had to do. When I was in school, I did some acting, and I always had to just say, okay, I'm not really sure this is going to turn out great. But nobody's going to know that. I'm going to walk in there like I know everything. I'm going to be confident, and we'll just take it from there. Sometimes that is all you have. You've studied, you've done all the things that you need to do, and just like going for an audition or a job interview, you just need to have the confidence that you have done what you need to do. You are worth it. You are qualified. You are perfect for whatever this is. You can say fake it, but faking it is the same as having it. So just have it. You're gonna doubt yourself through your whole life, but there are some times when you can't afford to. You just gotta reach down inside, pull that confidence up, put it on your face, and walk in there and be the absolute best authentic you that you can be. And trust me, people will notice. I remember a designer one time saying, in the design industry, they have so many different definitions of what is sexy. Is it a body type? Is it a perfect weight? None of that is what is sexy. Confidence is sexy. I hope you guys had fun hanging out. I hope that wherever you are, you're having a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, or a great night. I hope you're taking care of yourself. And I hope you're taking care of each other. And as always, I'll see you in my next one. Bye, y'all.
Louboutin dripping, fucking bleeding out my sneaks. Throw my crown at your face in case you forgot I was king. I hope it leaves a mark if you forget where you're destined to be. Higher than wings, flying outside of desert Syria.